Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, Dentsu International, delivering global media services with the Intelligent Data Hub. My name's Malcolm Chisholm. I'm president of Data Millennium, a consulting company in the area of data. I'd like to thank IRM UK for hosting this webinar and Semarchy for sponsoring it. This is a recorded webinar. The link will be available afterwards, so you can listen to it again or share it with your colleagues. And I'd like to welcome our presenters today, Anish Rivadera and Jerome O'Leary. They'll introduce themselves in a second. Now, we do encourage questions from attendees for Anish and Jerome. Please put them into the chat pane, which you will see in the general go-to webinar pane, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. So just put them in there and then we'll harvest them. And after the presentation, we'll ask Jerome and Anish to respond. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Anish and Jerome for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar looking at delivering global media services with the Intelligent Data Hub. So just to introduce ourselves briefly, my name is Jerome O'Leary. My role is as Director of Enterprise Integration within Dentsu International, and I work within the Global Technology function. So I've been with Dentsu approximately 2 years. When I joined Global Technology, it was very much a greenfield operation, and my role was to start to look at developing some core global capabilities. And since then, we've stood up 3 significant work streams. One of those has been focused on integration and the usage of our integration platform as a service. The second work stream, which we're going to focus on today, is around master data management and delivering a global capability again. And the third is around the build of an enterprise data hub, which I'll cover towards the end of this presentation. So all of these 3 capabilities, as I say, have been stood up from scratch over the course of the last 2 years. Prior to working within Dentsu, I was mainly working within the financial services sector in lead architecture type roles, as well as consultancy for e-com payments in tier 1 type banks, so quite different from the media sector. And prior to that, I used to work in geographical information systems in sectors like insurance and telco. So again, quite a different and diverse background. So apologies for the interruption there. So just as an aside, I've recently moved from central London, from Stoke Newington down to Guildford mid-pandemic. So that's been kind of exciting. And now settling into Surrey life and enjoying the Surrey hills. So I'll let Anish introduce himself now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anish. I'm the technical lead for Semarchy and the MDM project at Dentsu. I've been with Dentsu now for 1.5 years. My background is I've been in data quality for over 20 years, firstly with a company called QAS that developed the global address management software called Quick Address. Then I started my own consultancy, which was specializing in data quality, delivering professional services and software. And now I'm working with Dentsu on the Semarchy product to help Dentsu create a global master data set. My background is primarily software development. I'm a bit of a mathematician, so I tend to use the mathematics in algorithms to solve complicated data problems. And in business, for my sins and for a bit of diversity, I really do enjoy the process of selling. I live in northwest London, Harrow, recently an empty nester with my daughter going off to university, but COVID has meant she's come back a little early. So, so that's my background. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Anish. Okay, so in terms of what we wanted to cover on the webinar today, we're going to look at Dentsu and MDM and why we're trying to solve that problem within Dentsu. We're going to have a look at Semarchy, why we chose Semarchy as a product, why it fitted our problem space particularly well. We're going to have a look at some of the master data categories that we've identified and how we approach those. We'll focus on some of the project snapshots that we've undertaken over the past year and where those fit in with the strategic view of master data. We'll have a specific look at one of the master data workflow use cases that we've implemented. We'll finish off then looking at some of the master data management successes over the past year, and just provide a view on where master data fits in with Dentsu and the concept of this enterprise data hub that I mentioned. Okay. So if we have a look at Dentsu and master data management, so Dentsu International, previously known as Dentsu Aegis Network, is a multimedia, a multinational media and digital marketing communications organization. It's very big and it's very complex. It's fairly unique in the way that it's structured and the way that it's essentially a collection of brands. So each of these brands has their own systems, has their own data and their own processes. And in many ways, some of these brands act quite autonomously, although the idea is to bring all of these brands together to create one Dentsu, to create a single organization. So Dentsu itself is one of the largest media buying companies globally. It operates currently in about 150 different countries and employs somewhere in the region of 60,000 employees. So when we start looking at the systems landscape, it is complex, it is diverse. We have the concept of global platforms. So we try and standardize on, for example, Salesforce for our CRM. We're looking to standardize on Dynamics for our finance platforms, Workday for people data, Workfront for projects. But when it comes to media platforms, and particularly media, planning and buying type systems, these are very market specific, and we will never be able to get to the point of a single system. But obviously, trying to reduce the sheer volume of these media platforms is going to help us. So when we talk about our global platforms, each of these will have local variations. So rather than one instance of Salesforce, we probably have about 10 to 15 currently. So there is an exercise of consolidation, but you start to understand the complexity of the systems landscape requires that we look at data that has been siloed in local, regional, as well as these global systems. So when we look at master data, it's not in a single system, it's in 10, 15, 20, 30 different systems. So obviously there's a need to start to apply good master data management practice across these systems. So why do we need master data? It's obviously needed for the BI reporting, as well as other downstream systems. Most of the master data undertakings to date has been done locally for specific BI reports. We're now trying to do it once and do that globally, so it's available for all BI reporting and all downstream systems over time. So there is a recognized need within Dentsu to not just centralize data, but also to master data, to put in processes around cleansing and deduplication, to ensure that we've got strong and robust governance and data stewardship, and to make sure we've got the right level of business involvement and business engagement, so that we can start to look to optimize all of our business processes that support the global delivery of media services. Okay, so why did we choose Semarchy? It was about, I guess, a year and a half ago that we undertook a formal RFP process. And I mentioned that we had various different work streams. We had different lots to our RFP as well. So we were looking for a global tool set for integration. So we needed to be able to access transactional and master data from all of our disparate systems. So one of the lots focused on iPaaS solutions, and we went ahead and procured a product called SnapLogic that enables us to connect to all of the disparate systems to pull data through for Semarchy, but also for our Enterprise Data Hub capability. The second lot was purely around master data management, and we were looking at a pure play solution that was a good fit for Dan and its capabilities. So our second lot focused around the need for that master data capability. And then the third work stream was around API management. So this was with a nod to looking at API management and publishing data sets out to the wider organization. So that's initial RFP concluded in different parts. We took Semarchy forward to undertake a proof of value to make sure that it was the right product. And I'll let Anish just cover what we ticked off, if you like, in the proof of value exercise.
Yeah, during the proof of value exercise, which lasted probably about 4 months, we decided to use one of the Semarchy consultants, Trevor, who helped us. We had him on site for 30 days to train us on how to use Semarchy in terms of best practice. So during this time, we implemented 16 different business use cases, ranging from looking at client data, looking at media vendor data, things like office location data, as well as some other diverse data sets like IT data sets like software catalog information. And we also uploaded multiple reference data sets. So the aim of the POV was to see how Semarchy could solve some of our most challenging problems. Well, our primary challenge was to consolidate data from many disparate sources and see if we could match that data effectively. The data comes from different countries, it comes with different rules for naming conventions, and we wanted a way to bring that together. We also wanted to see how our users would react to Semarchy. The business users, the data stewards who actually work with the actual data on a day-to-day basis, they needed to be comfortable with Semarchy and how to process that data. We've already mentioned that there was an integration standpoint. How well would data be consumed and published out of Semarchy, and how well could we publish the APIs? And another consideration was the governance process. How could we get business users to author and approve different data domains? So these objectives were met by using a lot of the features within the Semarchy product range in terms of data matching capabilities, in terms of publishing web APIs, using the integration methodologies for monitoring data loads, as well as looking at the enrichment, workflow, and the dashboard capabilities. So after this extensive POV, we were in a position to make a decision about Semarchy. So Jerome, I'll hand over to you on the decision.
Yeah, so in terms of decision points, as I say, we went through an RFP process that was kind of long and formal. We completed the proof of value, which was deemed pretty successful. We proved all of the use cases that we had within that exercise. So the main points I've listed out here in terms of making the decision on Semarchy, first of all, was around the user perspective. Semarchy has a very nice visual user interface for presenting records and for understanding the relationship between records, specifically with our clients and our client hierarchies. So this was a really easy tool for us to put in front of the business and get a good level of business engagement and interaction, so that we weren't looking at a dry spreadsheet type view of master data, but you had an interactive data model that people could understand very easily. So that was a very successful way of selling the product into the organization. So we looked at deployment of applications and the fact that, again, with Semarchy, it's very quick and easy to build your own focused MDM applications and get those published out to the relevant data stewards. We looked at the license model as well. We spoke to a number of different vendors. The license model around Semarchy was very straightforward and very simple. There weren't lots of different parameters to have to think about. It was literally based on the number of golden records. So we had a good understanding of what we thought were our total number of golden records, the total counts. So we knew we were pretty much covered for a period of time, for a few years at least, for the number of records that the license covered for us. So again, we had some certainty of spend over the 3 to 5 year period. Some of the other points that we really liked, the API publication, data sets that are produced and managed within Semarchy are automatically published via APIs. So we have a number of media applications that want to consume master data directly from APIs, but they obviously have a mechanism of pulling the relevant information they need from those with very little effort from our side, to be honest. So again, data stewardship, it kind of touches on the rapid deployment of apps, but the ability to configure discrete applications for multiple data steward environments, very quick, very easy, and obviously it doesn't require coding. This is just configuration within the environment. And coming on to the last point, when we looked at our Enterprise Data Hub vision, we were looking at adding components to that in such a way that we could always pivot and change in the future if we wanted to. We didn't want to be beholden to a single vendor for all lots. So we like the fact that Semarchy was a pure MDM play, and it was decoupled from the other components that we were looking to deploy for our data hub. Okay, so in terms of master data categories, we looked across the organization in terms of the types of data that we were going to categorize as master data and how we were going to approach it. So we came upon a framework of tiering our data sets. We had the concept of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 master data categories. So when we looked at tier 1 type master data, we were looking at multi-system domains. Okay, so this was specifically around client, vendor, and media vendor. And these are probably the 3 most critical data sets to Dentsu. And they're the most complex. So they appear in multiple different systems. They appear in tens of different media platforms. So the alignment of all of these is a complex issue. It's going to require a lot of detailed knowledge and business engagement and data stewardship to get those data sets where we want them to be. It's also going to require a lot of integration effort and a lot of aligning over time. So these are definitely our tier 1 bigger problems that we are tackling strategically over time. Tier 2 are slightly simpler. These may be non-system domains, things like brands within Dentsu. We obviously have many different brands, so creating definitive lists of brands, definitive lists of office locations, etc. These are medium complex, but they still need monitoring, they still need business stewardship, but they are considered easier to use. So the third tier was the much simpler reference domains. So these fall into 2 distinct categories. There were external data sets, like, for example, ISO, country codes, currency lists, whatever those standard reference domains are that are needed by multiple systems. And then we have our internal reference data domains as well, that are specific to Dentsu, specific to lines of business, probably specific to the media line of business specifically. The idea is that these are low in terms of complexity, they're low in terms of transients, they don't change very often, so they don't require a lot of business engagement. So we took this kind of framework of which to approach our master data categories, and then we undertook a number of different projects that I'll hand over to Anish to cover.
Cool, thank you, Jerome. So we started quite a few MDM projects this year. The main one concerns client data. We have a central global Salesforce platform that holds most of our client information, but these are not the only CRM systems we have. Each of the markets where we have a presence has their own version of CRM. Most of them are Salesforce, but there are other versions out there. So client information is actually held in lots of CRM systems globally. So what we're currently doing is using the integration technology into our enterprise data hub. But the problem gets bigger because client information isn't just in CRM system, it's in our finance systems. So D365 has client information, but every country may have their own instance of D365 and they would have additional client information there as well. In addition, our media systems have client information and our project management systems also have client information. So you can see from the complexity of the disparate nature of the systems, we actually want to create a single set of golden client information. So we're putting all the challenges to pull all the data together and to match that using the Semarchy data matching facilities to actually create a golden record. So this is our biggest and most complex project to date. Other initiatives include synchronizing our procurement system Coupa with our finance system. The aim there is to remove duplicate information. We're also building a data mart, which is being used by our BI teams globally. And also, as we've already mentioned, reference data is being centralized so we can promote good use of data quality. So the reference data is internal where it's Dentsu specific, and it's external if it's just general information. So I'll walk through 3 of the projects in a bit more detail in the next two slides. Jerome, could you move to the next slide? Okay, so this was a very interesting project. It was regarding client onboarding within our media areas. So each of our markets, they have a media team who capture client data, which they push downstream into the media buying systems. So the current system they use is a SharePoint system. They've created a form with over 100 plus fields. The data that's being captured is basic client information, contact details, financial and commercial details. In addition, Nintex is used as a workflow to implement a 5-level approval process. So approvals go to client directors, local and global financial controllers, as well as a data quality approval team, as well as a media systems approval team. So each market has its own version of this particular client onboarding process. Although the processes themselves are very similar, but they do have nuances specific to their market. So the major problem was that this was prone to lots of data quality errors and duplicate information being entered. So local markets would then hire data quality teams who then manually would resolve these issues in Excel or in some other application. So we decided to use Semarchy to improve this process and improve the overall data quality. We created a 14-step client authoring form to capture the 100 plus fields. We used the Semarchy's workflow functionality to implement the 5 levels of approval and apply a very thorough governance process to it. So with a solution like Semarchy, when we're capturing information, we can apply a whole range of validations and business rules at the point of data capture, and also we can detect duplicates before they're actually entered into the system. Given the easy use of the Semarchy UI, the users found this very easy to manage. In addition, we added a dashboard or two we looked to measure the performance of the client onboarding process. So we were looking at how long it was taking to capture the data, how long was each step of the approval process, and what was the end-to-end times for the whole onboarding process. Overall, the business users approved the process that was presented to them, and currently we're deploying this in the UK and developing similar processes in other markets. So by standardizing on the same technology and the same process, we can leverage synergy here. We can ensure the client data quality and the ability to create golden client information now starts to become a feasible target. Jerome, could you move on to the next slide? Cool. So thank you for that. So a couple of successes this year that we've achieved is around reporting. The first one is around client profitability. So we have processes that calculate client profitability already, but a lot of the client information is already in disparate nature within systems, within markets. And what the client profitability reporting functionality required was the ability to assign an ultimate parent to every client. Now, the nature of the clients at Dentsu are global, and they have many subsidiaries. And so we wanted to wrap them up into one ultimate parent client value. So we created integrations from many source systems, from the project management ones in particular, and we pumped the data into our enterprise-wide data hub. The data was then moved over to Semarchy, where we were able to map client data to an ultimate parent client value. So what we could automate was great, and what we couldn't automate, we created data steward roles for the business to actually map that parent client. What this meant was that the map data with the source data was pushed into the client profitability database, and amalgamating that data with the revenue and resource information, this could be assigned to the ultimate clients, and we could now calculate client profitability in a more automated fashion. So that was one of the successes for this year. The second one was a similar type application for utilization reporting. We have project management systems throughout the world, and we need to create utilization reporting, but that relies on something called timesheet categories. So when somebody logs in, they're allocated a timesheet category. But as the markets were working on their own, the timesheet categories were all different per market, and we needed to standardize the timesheet category codes. So there were 6 codes that were identified that we wanted to standardize on. Now, there were hundreds of different values coming from tens of different systems. So again, we used integration tooling to pull the timesheet data globally into the enterprise data hub and then into Semarchy. Semarchy was able to map the categories to one of the 6 values according to a set of business rules that we had written, and data stewards were given permission to map those which Semarchy couldn't automate. The advantage of using the enterprise data hub is every time a new timesheet system would come on board, we could insert that data set into the process very easily, and Semarchy would continue to map the data from the new timesheet systems. And again, the map data with the source categories were then sent to our finance database, where utilization reporting became widespread. So there are 2 of the successes this year, and there are plenty more projects coming up in 2021 for us. So I'll pass over to Jerome.
Thanks, Anish. Okay, so I just wanted to finish with a bit of a view on master data management and the Enterprise Data Hub. We've probably mentioned it enough times now, so just to walk through exactly what that looks like, the diagram on the right-hand side of the screen is aiming to show what the Enterprise Data Hub covers at this point in time. So if you have a look at the very bottom tier here, this is to represent DAN source systems. And the fact that there are hundreds of these, so these are just an example set, but they fall into broad categories of timesheet type systems, of which we have probably 80 to 100, if not more. We have sales CRM systems. Salesforce is just one of those. We probably have about another 10 across the organization. We have Workday for people data, for finance, Dynamics 365, SAP BPC, AX 2012, and various other different finance platforms. Media, MediaOcean is a generic term for systems that differ greatly by individual markets, and Hudson MX is another media type platform. So we try and integrate where we can with all of these systems using SnapLogic, which is our data consolidation platform. So we're connecting to databases, to APIs. Where we can't do that, we take manual extracts of data. So the idea is that all of the data from these different systems is consolidated into 2 distinct locations. One of those we've obviously spent this session talking about is Semarchy, where we manage our master data. For all of the other transactional data, it lands in containers within our data lake. So we effectively land all of our raw data into this enterprise data lake capability. Once we have it, we can then look at providing data standardization. So again, we've tried different tool sets to provide this standardization tier. But again, SnapLogic provides the capability to standardize data into things like common timesheet data models. So when somebody wants to choose timesheets for particular countries or regions, it's all in a standard format in a single data mart in our enterprise data warehouse. If people need sales data from different brands in the organization, again, that's being consolidated and standardized into individual data marts. So once we have these data marts in our data warehouse for sales, for people, for finance, and ultimately also for master data, all of those data marts can be used and combined to solve different BI use cases. So our original use cases were around supporting global HR analytics, supporting global client profitability views, but we since extended this to create data marts and business use cases across the organization. So we're starting to expand out how we deliver data sets. So essentially, in terms of the technology, it's an iPaaS platform for the data integration. It's Semarchy for our master data. And after that, we're looking at fairly pure Azure tech. So it's ADLS Gen 2 for our data lake storage. And it's Azure SQL for our data warehouse capabilities. So as we go through, we are iterating the technologies and the capabilities so that we are looking at adding in additional analytics functions. And we're also looking to support event management over time. So we can start to orchestrate activity between these back-end systems rather than just pulling data out for the purposes of business intelligence and reports. So the business process orchestration and event management will be the sort of, if you like, the beating heart of our enterprise data hub as we go forward into 2021. So hopefully that's given a good overview of what we're up to in Dentsu with MDM and where it fits into our enterprise data hub vision. So I think that concludes our slides for today. Thank you for listening, and we will open out for any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Anish and Jerome, for that fascinating presentation. We do indeed have some questions from the audience. And audience, please feel free to type any questions you might have into the chat window, and our IRM colleagues will relay them to me. So the first question we have references the slide you showed early on of the 3 tiers, I think, with respect to the RFP. Do you have you met the need to create a global data model to cover the 3 tiers?
I think this is talking about how we approached master data, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Yes, we are looking at creating global data models for clients, for vendor, for media vendor, and for our other data sets. It's obviously, they're discrete data models in their own domain, but we need to be able to create golden records that support all of the downstream systems. So yes, absolutely, we're trying to define what those core data models are going to be.
Thank you. Another one, how big was your central team and what roles did it contain?
Yeah, good question. So at the very outset, the team was Anish, right? So he was key to getting the proof of value up and running and effectively selling to the business what we were intending to take forward. So we've expanded the team somewhat since then. We have offshore capabilities. We have additional 3 people that help us build the applications and start to look at loading the data. That's been fine for this year. But when we go into next year, we're looking to, again, substantially increase that team. And bear in mind, this is a tech team rather than data stewards or data governance type people. But we're looking to expand that team to be at least 6 to 10. We may need to expand it further than that as we take on things like the media platforms, the media data sets. But yes, we're looking to significantly expand our capabilities in the tech teams.
Great, and we do have another one. What tool have you used for data model managing and definition tool?
Yeah, I'll let Anish answer that one for now.
Yeah, at the moment we haven't gone to an external application for all the modeling at the moment. We're using Semarchy's own internal modeling and our knowledge of SQL and data normalization to do that. As the data model starts to get more and more complicated, I think we'll be looking into investigating some data modeling tools out there. But for now, we've been using our knowledge to model everything with.
Yeah, it's a known gap, I guess, in our Enterprise Data Hub tech stack at the moment. We don't have a specific data modeling capability other than sort of free open source tools. So we are looking to plug that gap into 2021, as well as things like data catalogs and capabilities in that space. So it is something that we are maturing as we go.
Yeah, because
right, and there's the kind of, sorry, go ahead.
No, just a quick one. As we're start out the process of master data management, it's early days, so hence it's like putting together the building blocks at this point in time. And I think as things get more and more complicated, we'll see the type of tooling we'll need to solve that particular problem.
Great. Going back to the roles, there's another question. Do the roles include data modelers and data architects?
So at the moment they don't. It's a bit of a mixed disciplinary role. So the guys that are undertaking the tech development are also, I guess, responsible for helping define what those data models are going to be. Absolutely, there's a requirement for data architects, and we have had in the past that capability. But again, we are lacking those specific roles at the moment. So we are, as I say, looking to fill those next year.
Okay. How does data governance play into the work you are doing?
So data governance is obviously absolutely critical to making sure that this is successful, and it's something we've called out from the very beginning. We are a tech function. Technically, we can stand this up. Technically, we can make it work and build applications. The data governance side is absolutely key to making sure that client is well looked after, well maintained, and we've got the right data stewardship processes in place to do that. So we work closely with business partners. So we have somebody that leads on the data governance and data steward side within the organization. and within his particular function, they are looking to stand up leads for clients, leads for vendor, and leads for some of these other data sets as well, so we can identify the correct owners and the correct stewardship and data governance processes for each of those data domains.
Okay. One more question. How many golden sources are you dealing with?
In terms of systems,
I think, oh, sorry, well, systems or classes of entities, however you want to categorize it.
Yeah, in terms of classes of entities, the master data domains themselves, I think in terms of reference data sets, Anish, correct me where I'm wrong, I think we've probably got about 20 to 30 that we've identified for reference. For the sort of tier 1 type domains, it's a handful. It's, you know, sort of up to 5 core master data domains, but that's not to trivialize them. These are very big, complex data sets. And the point of Dentsu is that, you know, we don't have it in a single instance of Salesforce. These records exist in finance platforms, in media platforms, and various other different places. So the first problem is to be able to access all of these data sets, to be able to profile them and analyze them before we can start to make some sort of sense out of them. So it's a combination of you know, the number of different data sets, but also, you know, how disparate that data is actually held in the organization.
Great, thank you. One more. What was your biggest worry going into this project? And from your perspective today, should this have been the thing you needed to worry about the most?
So I think we had 2 worries. One of them was about selling the capabilities of Semarchy, and in fact, selling the need to have a centralized MDM solution. I don't think that was largely recognized. It seems obvious now, but at the beginning, people felt they, you know, managed their own master data and they didn't need this central capability. So selling the concept of master data management and the enterprise data hub was one of the first issues we had to overcome. The proof of value and the product itself helped us to achieve that. I think afterwards, it's all then about having the right data governance processes in place. We called that out as probably the biggest risk to our program way back at the very beginning. I don't think that's fundamentally changed. I think the organization itself and its ability to understand what it needs to do with master data and to put those governance processes in place has been slower than we'd want it to be. So I think that risk is still very much alive, although we are overcoming it for some of the domains already. But it's yeah, not to underestimate the amount of work that we need to do for each of those.
Thank you. And the last question, because we are almost at the 45-minute mark. If you could be brief, how do data stewards help you with your work?
Anish, do you want to cover that one?
Data stewards, they know their data already. We're on the technology side, so we can implement the fancy algorithms through MDM applications, which enable processes and governance. But the data stewards really know their data. So when they're using Semarchy, they're providing us with feedback. When they're looking at the data, they're constantly giving us feedback of how the business actually wants to use the data. So it's incredibly invaluable to get their input because they're at the cold front of working with customers.
Yeah, great. That's really great. Well, thank you again, Anish and Jerome, for a great presentation today and a fascinating discussion on top of it too. And thank you, everyone who attended. Remember, this webinar has been recorded and will be available for you to view again and share with your colleagues. Thank you to IRM UK for hosting it and Semarchy for sponsoring it. And with that, it's goodbye from all of us. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.